to sentence you to 40 years. And when I look at my cheat sheet, 40 years, just so you know, and you can count it off your calendar, is 480 months. The tail end, because I need to send a message to the parole board in the event. Somehow God is gracious, and I know He is. And you survive the 60 years in federal court first, and then you start on my 40 years. You've gone off the page here as to what I'm doing. My page only goes to 100 years. Sir, I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I've just signed your death warrant.
Unforgettable, uncensored, unforgivable. The Unspoken Podcast with Tom Albano, Nick Fodera, and Nick Morgasen on the Undetermined Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, a Cheap Seat Sports production, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. It's episode number 54. I'm Tom Albano, along with Nick Fodera, Nick Morgasen as always, and we have a special guest, Eric Lizzul.
What's up, guys? I'm Eric Lizzul. I joined these guys probably back in October when we did a little pre-postseason baseball. It's good to be back, talk a little about the sports, and it's always a pleasure to be on with you guys.
Thanks, Eric. It's a pleasure for you to come on. We got a lot to talk about today. Before we get into our usual stuff with the front page and everything, I have to give a quick update as to what's going on in the case of Larry Nassar, the former Olympic doctor for the U.S. Olympic gymnastics team, officially sentenced from somewhere. It's a long sentence. Basically, he is going away forever.
It's a death sentence, basically, Tom. And on my way back from my Vegas trip, because I had nothing else better to do, I decided to turn on the sentencing of Larry Nassar. And I see that he gets sentenced to 175 years, and he's already got 60 years for the child porn charge, which a lot of people are not looking at. And I finally said, good riddance. And when the judge said, I just signed your death warrant, everyone, I think at the end of the case, actually got up and cheered.
60 to 40 and then 175. It's like back to back to back big punches. He's basically never getting out of prison.
That was never in dispute, though, that he was going to die in prison, though.
Well, no, it wasn't a dispute, but at the same time, I found it interesting at the end that she's like, if you get out, if you ever survive, we're going to have to declare you a sexual offender, and we're going to have to put an ankle brace. If you get out, if you're 180-something years old, and you somehow survive.
It's 175-year max, so if you do the math, technically it'd be like 200-something.
Right. Whatever. I'm just making small talk on it. But you know what? The guy is a moron. I'm trying to be a little classier about it because we don't need to waste time on him as much as we should. But the guy is a moron. He needs to go away forever. And the letter that was read in the case, if you guys watch the actual proceeding, he basically comes out and says, I was doing my doctorly duties and I don't feel like I did anything wrong. And the prosecutors basically forced me to plead guilty.
Yeah, well, like I said, he's got his own parking space in hell. But what's most interesting, well, what we're going to see now, that he is pretty much for all intents and purposes going to fry in prison. Now we're going to see all the other dominoes fall. We heard the other day that MSU President Luana Simon, who knew about Larry Nassar, she knew about his problem, let's say, and did nothing about it. She just resigned. We're going to see so many more dominoes fall. Because, again, this guy was allowed to get away with this for years, and nobody did anything because they were, more concerned about sweeping it under the rug and keeping the pristine reputation than, protecting the livelihoods of the people who compete for them.
You know what I don't get? Sorry, Tom, but you know what I don't get is these 160 plus victims that eventually spoke out. And we talked about this, I think, last week, where he tried to put in for medical notice that he couldn't handle all the victims speaking out against him. You know what? Too damn bad. You committed a crime. Now you have to suffer and listen to the people who are victims. And you're going to fry right next to Jerry Sandusky.
And it's funny that we all bring up that the dominoes are going to fall earlier today, as of the day of this recording, the athletic director now at Michigan State has resigned, and the U.S. Olympic Committee now basically has 6 days, or five to 6 days, something like that, the board has to resign. Otherwise, the U.S. Olympic, basically for the Olympics, gymnastic Olympics, their accreditation's removed.
Right. And they actually cleaned house to the point where the whole Olympic Committee for the U.S. is gone. Like you said, MSU head director is gone, which should have happened a long time ago. And there's just a lot of issues, and they got to get these straight because the Winter Olympics are within the next month.
Within the next couple of weeks, actually. And this is such a bad look for U.S. athletics coming into the biggest event in a while, because it's a really momentous occasion, because it's in Pyeongchang with all the geopolitical stuff that's been going on between the two Koreas. This is a momentous occasion, and you're coming out stumbling with this. This is not a good look.
It's not. And just the way that this situation is played out and how long it took. And if you heard in the case, the judge was saying I had to go through all the political amendments to make sure everything was handled properly. First and third amendments, and just making sure everything was handled properly. And I thought it was a little odd, though, because like there were some reports that came out afterwards that she was like a women's movement person. So I don't know. As much as I'm glad he got the 175 years, I don't know if she was exactly the right person to be the judge on the case.
Although I think the crowd in the courtroom gave their opinion when the judge was talking to the first girl to basically speak out against the doctor and his practices. We do have the audio of that, by the way.
No, and before you play that, that's actually really important audio, because if it wasn't for her stepping up, then you wouldn't have the other 160 plus victims who decided to speak up at the same time. And also, you had one of the victims take their lives because of how traumatic the situation was. So let's hear the audio, and then we can make a comment.
As you started the timeline, you made all of this happen. You made all of these voices matter. Your sister survivors, and I thank you. You are the greatest person I have ever had in my courtroom. Thank you.
The fact that they applaud at the end, I think that shows you where everybody else stood on this thing. It's like justice has been served.
Right. Justice has been served, and the way the situation was. And I think we should try to finish it here because, like him, he's a nothing, and he really doesn't deserve a lot of praise or anything in this situation. But you know what? You could tell he looked guilty, even though he wrote that letter. The way he was standing up at the stand, his head is half down, with the frown, and just... It's over. He's going to rot, like Nick said. He's going to fry right next to Jerry Sandusky, and that's it.
Yeah, which is kind of why I just kept quiet most of this section, because I just don't think he's worth any of our times. I know it's big news, but I think everyone just hoped that he got what he deserved, and he's just a piece of crap. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there like him, and brave person, whether it's male, female, to come out and say that they've been, sexually molested or touched the wrong way, or even just even if someone just says something derogatory towards them. So you know what? This guy is going to spend the rest of his life in prison. I'm sure it's not going to be a pretty run, because we know what happens to people like that inside prison. So that's my little section on it. And I hope I don't ever have to bring up this man's name again, because what he did is disgusting. And it makes us, as a country, just,
Right. Guys, so now let's go on to the front page, and the Super Bowl is set, and if I could take the words of one of my favorite YouTubers, no matter who wins, we all lose. At least that's my opinion. That's my opinion on this.
Well, the way the Super Bowl ended up being, just the way the outcomes came, when, again, being in Vegas, it was interesting to see the fans, how they reacted as I was walking around the different casinos. First of all, you're going to laugh. I saw a bunch of Patriot fans, which you wouldn't believe. And then I saw a bunch of Jaguar fans in a different place, and I was just like, wow, and we stopped to watch the game, and as soon as the penalty was thrown on that throw from Brady to, I think, Amendola or a Gronk, I don't remember who it was, but when that penalty was thrown and they were on the drive to take the lead, the room erupted of Patriots fans. You have no idea.
They always come out of the woodwork. They're like cockroaches, for God's sake.
The one funny thing I will say, though, is that there was a Minnesota fan. She was wearing a Vikings jersey, and she was rooting for the Patriots, by the way.
What? And you bring up the Vikings, and I'm sad because the Vikings had to lose to the Eagles. I was so hoping, because my dad is a big Vikings fan, like your dad, Nick F., and just utter disappointment yet again.
I date a Patriots fan, okay? So have some pity on me because I was there up in New England. And I usually, when I visit her every other weekend, I try to stay till around like 4 or 5 o'clock and then leave because I have to drive home. So I stayed till about the halftime, and of course the Pats were down at halftime, and the whole room of her family was quiet. And I have to walk on eggshells because I have to know my place. So but inside, I was a little happy, but I never count them out because you see what they do year in and year out, and it's incredible what they do, and it's almost like you can't expect them. You can't count them out until the fourth quarter is completely done. And I know that's, sort of obvious because that means the game would end, but like they are such a fourth quarter team. Like it's scary how good they are. And I gotta deal with this more because I experienced it firsthand, but I don't know if you guys are going to be siding with me, but I'm kind of rooting for the Pats.
You know what? I do agree with you, Eric, because honestly, as much as I dislike the Pats and as much as context is necessary. Eric, for those of you who don't know, went to college in Providence, Rhode Island, he's basically smack dab in the center of masshole country. So
yeah, I've been dealing with this between the Red Sox World Series in 2013, the Pats 2 Super Bowls, and so the only reason, let me tell you why I want the Pats, just real quick, and then you can finish that, is because one, I do, want my girlfriend and her family to be happy because, they're actually decent Patriots fans. Unlike a lot of people I know who I would love to see miserable, but I do really want Eli Manning to still be the only guy to ever take down Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. That remains true to Giant fans, that we are the only guys to take down Brady twice. And I don't want to give Eagles fans that satisfaction.
I don't want to. As much as I dislike the Patriots, I hate the Eagles more because they're in the NFC East. They've given the Giants so much shit. Philly fans are awful. I've told you.
Are you kidding me?
Wait, remember this. I went to school in South Jersey, so I got all the Philly treatments.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Time out. Okay. Did you just say that Philly fans are worse than Boston fans? Is that what you just said, Nick?
It's a different breed of jerk.
No. Hold up.
Well, let's remember something, Nick Morgasen. You're a Jets fan, so you deal with the Patriots a lot more often than we should.
But wait a second. Time out. I have to talk to Nick here because I have to give him a reaming because I have to remember. He has to remember, first of all.
A reaming? Is that what I'm getting?
Yes, because first of all, you're a New York fan, so you should understand how bad Boston fans are. And second, Philly fans take a walk to the beach compared to Boston fans. I've seen it firsthand going to games. I've seen fans get arrested. Boston fans get arrested at Fenway Park when I went there, okay?
Can we agree that the only thing worth rooting for in the Super Bowl is the chicken wings? Can we agree on that?
You mean the million chicken wings that are going to be eaten? Yes.
Yes.
Because you know what else? You know what else I'm rooting for? Maybe certain players and certain plays happening, so that way numbers and stats show up, so that way I can earn money.
Wait. Oh, you mean the prop bets?
Not prop bets for one. Also the NFL playoff challenge.
Oh, stop it. You know what? I almost bet the Super Bowl when I was down in Vegas. I almost did.
It's a good thing you didn't do it. That's the thing, because
there's a little bit of there's just a difference. Like I know each fan base I really do not like. There's a difference is the fact that the Pats are they're a cocky, arrogant fan base because they can be. And then you got Philly on the other end who's miserable because they haven't done shit since. I mean, you got to give them the Phillies in 2008, but besides that, what have they done since? There's bad fans everywhere. I mean, I remember when the Flyers played the Rangers for the first Winter Classic in Philly. There was viral videos of Flyer fans beating the crap out of Ranger fans. So you're going to get both sides. You're going to get crap fans in every fan base. You know what? I'm a huge Yankee fan. I'm sure you guys are too. So there's some crappy fans out there too. There's just a difference, I think, in a sense where angry and miserable because they suck, and Pats fans, you just hate them. They rub it in your face, and that's what happens, you know. But if there was a way both of them could lose, that's obviously what everyone would pick. But that's not the case.
Right.
That's the thing. I'm not going to cheer for anybody. I'm not even going to cheer for anybody. I'm not going to pick. I will pick maybe the Patriots as, like, you know, from a journalistic view of who's going to win the game. But as a fan, I'm not rooting for anybody.
I'm not rooting for anybody.
Yeah, we're all going to watch because we're slaves to it. But look, from what we've seen from the Jaguars and the Vikings this past Sunday, Blake Bortles and Case Keenum are who we thought they were all along. They pulled the wool over our eyes for the entire season, and they made us think that they were good. But you know what? All it takes is the slightest amount of pressure, and they crack. They collapse like a flan in a cupboard.
You realize this game would be a lot closer, though, if Carson Wentz was actually healthy. They might actually be closer to a favorite at that point if Carson Wentz was still playing.
Yeah, pretty much. Everybody wrote them out after Carson Wentz got injured, myself included.
Yes, because somehow Nick Foles somehow has second, third, fourth, fifth, a million lives in this game.
They can win, though, because it's not unprecedented for a backup quarterback to win the Super Bowl. Jeff Hostetler did it in the 90s.
Oh my God, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Funny enough.
How good did they look, though? I mean, they looked really good for a chunk of that game. And the Patriots got a couple chintzy-ass calls. I mean, that one, I think right before the half where they called the pass interference, that was just really good defense. And
I agree. The only thing I will criticize Jacksonville about, which kind of puts me in that position of like being angry at Jacksonville for the 4-quarter blown, is how do you give up a third and whatever it was, 3rd and 18 or something like that?
I mean, it was some ridiculous.
Yeah, that was it. When that happened, I was like, all right, they won. I turned the radio off because I was driving home. Like, they won. Screw it, they won.
I mean, just the way the game was, and you saw them on that drive with about 6.5 minutes left to go, and they're just making their way down the field. This is typical Tom Brady, who, if he keeps going on pace, he'll get to the end zone when the clock expires and the game is over. And it didn't help that the pass interference at the end of the game just totally blew the game up for the Jaguars.
It's a crap Super Bowl, but we're still going to watch because, football is football. We're kind of slaves.
Well, let's put it this way, though. Do you think that it would have mattered if it was the Eagles or the Vikings? Would you pick the Patriots anyway?
I think if the Pats won the Super Bowl, I was picking them regardless.
I think that's what everyone's going to do.
For me and Nick Fodera, it's a little different because then we actually have a horse in the race.
Oh, stop. You're not supposed to pick a game just because of a horse in the race.
Right, no, but basically,
that's what people do.
But you're not supposed to do that. If you're in the media, like we are doing a podcast or in radio or journalism, you're supposed to pick the team that wins.
If I'm not working, I'm not a journalist.
You got to keep in mind, too, the Pats did this without Edelman. Gronk was not Gronk, really.
Well, the thing is, they didn't need Gronk last year.
Well, he had a concussion also. You got to remember that.
How good they are. And honestly, I don't really... Okay, the talent is the talent. Brady's phenomenal. Amendola is pretty clutch. Who would have thought that? Cooks is pretty good, but it's the brains behind it. It's Bill Belichick and that squad that they have on the sideline. It's just incredible what they can do, and they rattle people. They get other teams and other players just sort of standing on their heels instead of their toes. They're scary, and they always have home field advantage. That's part of the.
They always do. You're right, and basically. But what I would say is, and I saw this on Sports Nation the other day, who is more important to the Patriots' success? Is it Bill Belichick or is it Tom Brady? Now, how would you guys answer that question?
Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick.
Yeah. We go Belichick because look at if you kept Garoppolo in there, they were winning with Brissett. So it's got to be Belichick. I mean, there's nothing against Brady because he's phenomenal, best quarterback I've ever seen, and that's terrible for a New York sports fan to say. But you got to be honest and true. And Belichick is just disgustingly talented, like it's crazy.
It's hard to believe that he was a Cleveland Browns coach to start his career, for crying out loud.
We'll get more into football on another matter in a little bit. But, boys, before we do that, let's talk a little bit about the MLB Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame class was just announced. Vlad Guerrero, Jim Thome, Trevor Hoffman. It was Guerrero, Thome, Hoffman, and Clipper Jones. That's right.
So Larry makes good.
Yes. And I just pulled up the percentage of Hall of Fame results, which I found interesting. Trevor Jones got 97.2%. Vladimir Guerrero got 92.9%. Oh, you forgot Jim Thome, by the way.
I said Jim Thome.
Did you?
He said it, yeah.
89.8%. Trevor Hoffman, 79.9%. And did Edgar get in? No, he didn't. Right, so I think you need 75% of the vote to get into the Hall of Fame.
Got 70.
So, and some interesting guys that just missed, before we get into the guys that made it. Mike Messina, 63.5%. I think he'll get in next year. But some of the guys that are climbing in the numbers, Roger Clemens, 57.3%. Barry Bonds, 56.4%.
And here we go again.
Do we ever see these guys getting in? Let's ask that question.
Until they do, you're going to hear a lot more about the guys that didn't get in than the guys that actually do get in, because they're the elephant in the room, because they were such an integral part of the game for so long, and they helped contribute to its rebirth after the strike in 1993. MLB cannot just take the path of just saying, steroid era? What steroid era? They can't just stick their fingers in their ears and go, la, 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 la.
I would actually argue if we're gonna do the old versus young argument, old sports writer versus young sports writer argument for this, it doesn't just go to the steroid era people. It also goes to Edgar Martinez. Edgar Martinez, don't forget, for some of these sports writers, some of our parents and grandparents, there was a time when there was no designated hitter.
Yeah, but Hall of Fame is not based on defense. It's based on your offensive or your pitching numbers, really.
I don't know. I think that's another argument is, are we considering defense? Should we consider defense a high part of it?
It depends on what you're looking at. So if, say you have a guy like Omar Vizquel, who has probably like 13 or 14 gold gloves at the shortstop position, then that might tip his vote partially. Now, you have to remember certain statistics. I'm sure everyone here knows it. On the offensive side, it's 500 home runs and it's 3,000 hits. If you hit one of those plateaus, then you're pretty much into the Hall of Fame, as long as you didn't cheat or you didn't do something stupid while you were playing. And, well, yes.
Well, it's funny. If you watched Dan Le Batard's show yesterday on ESPN, they had Katie Nolan on, and Katie Nolan, Hofstra alum, actually said she would put Clemens and Bonds in the Hall of Fame only because the fact when you mentioned a steroid era, and you talked, Nick, about MLB ignoring it, basically that the MLB did not do enough to stop it and basically let it slide in that era, the late 90s or 2000s.
But there's one thing that we're not realizing here. So people are going to say, well, oh, we had the steroid era, but do you know why? Let me ask you a question. Do you know why MLB turned a blind eye to it?
Because after the strike, they were struggling in attendance and everything.
Well, right. But at the same time, the ratings were up. The money was up. So instead of saying, hey, let's knock our ratings and knock our money down and bust everybody, we're just going to keep a blind eye. We're just going to take the money in and make the ratings go up.
Of course they did, because, they are many things. Immoral, yeah. Let's say blind, not immoral. They're blind, but they're not stupid. The only color that matters to them is green.
I thought Bud Selig also was not the best commissioner in all of Major League Baseball. I think Rob Manfred can be a better commissioner. But back to your point, this has to do with Selig batting a blind eye, Nick.
Yeah, he does. And there are certain things he does that make Gary Bettman look good.
Oh, God, why would you say that?
Oh, my God.
No, Nick, no.
But here, I'll ask one question here, and I'm curious to see if yes or no answers here. Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds, do they eventually get in, yes or no?
Yes, I think. If not this year, within the next 2 to 3 years, maybe. The dam is going to burst, and they'll get in.
I was going to ask if we're talking about, are they going to get in? Like, because obviously we don't have votes. Yeah, they will. Yeah, we don't have votes yet.
Yeah, we all want votes, except if we end up doing the Dan Le Batard thing where we sell the vote to the fans and lose it, then journalists are going to get a bad name for the Hall of Fame voting.
Actually, I was talking to my dad. My dad's one of those older types, like, doesn't believe Edgar Martinez should get in because...
What?
But he actually brought something up. He said, I want more investigation into that, like journalists who are giving up their votes, letting other people vote for them or the fans vote for them, give it to the ones who are actually going to use their vote.
Well, they took his vote away.
Right.
Because it was just stupidity on Le Batard's part. You didn't think that the Hall of Fame Association was going to find out that he was doing that?
Which I thought, it was just absolutely stupid. What do you guys think about, before we move on, what do you guys think about this thing of making Hall of Fame ballots public? Good? Bad?
Absolutely. They have to do it. Because I hate all these private... I'm going to vote in private, and I'm not going to share my vote because I'm a scared journalist who writes to hundreds of thousands of people anyway. You know what? Own up to your vote. Otherwise, don't have a vote.
Yeah, and a lot of sports writers you're seeing, they'll tell you in their columns who they voted for. And, you need to have that transparency. But you also, I think there should be a fan component, because what is baseball without the fans? Nothing. That's what it is.
What's funny is I asked that question and Michael Kay actually ended up sharing his ballot. And it's funny is I'm going to give him credit for doing so, but I saw on his ballot Billy Wagner, but not for Trevor Hoffman. I feel like, no, if you're voting for Wagner, Hoffman. I know, that was my reaction to it.
Wait, who voted for Billy Wagner?
Michael Kay.
The Braves version of Billy Wagner? Because I hope it's not the Mets version of Billy Wagner.
Wait a minute. There's 4 versions. There's the Braves, the Phillies, the Astros, or the Mets. Which one?
All of them, I guess.
Well, there are some lemons in there, so choose at your discretion.
I don't know. The way the Hall of Fame voting is done, I'm not 100% a huge fan of it. I think they need to do a better job of figuring out who's voting and who's not. And like Tom said, it could be an older versus younger debate in journalists who gets to vote. Obviously, the younger journalists are going to vote for the guys like Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, David Ortiz, when these guys are eligible, some of them. And that's the way it's going to be.
I'm just going to say this. If you have a vote for the Hall of Fame, here's what you do. You do your homework. You find your beliefs on where you stand on these matters like the steroid stuff. And then it shouldn't take you that long to look at the ballot and say, okay, is so-and-so a Hall of Famer? You have 10 votes. You can easily pick the 10 guys at most, if not less, because not everybody uses those 10 votes. These 10 should be in the Hall of Fame this year. Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good plan. Not everybody is dedicated as we are to do that. You get a lot of fans who'll just click and be like, I like this guy, screw this guy, he was there. That's I think where you run into an issue.
Okay.
Us would sit down and take the time and be reasonable, but in this day and age, how many people are not like that?
Right. And if we do have a fan component, as you were mentioning, Nick, I think it should be a less one, like a significant less, only because I have the fear of stuffing the ballot box.
No, that's a good point. And you know what? The way the ballot boxes are set up now, it's just, like I told you, it's older writers. And once the older writers move on and the younger writers become a little bit older, their generations move up with them. The only thing they know is the players of the 90s or the players of the early 2000s. That's what they know.
Which is why I do like the modern era committee. Like they can say, hey, if this person is so deserving, but some BS of the voting isn't keeping him in, you know what? We're going to let him in anyways.
Well, you're talking about the Veterans Committee. It's after, I think, about 17 or 18 years of being on the ballot. As long as you maintain, I think it was 50% of the vote, I think you have to maintain. And if you don't maintain that vote, you get knocked off the ballot. Or it might be less. I'm not sure on that number 100%.
But basically, it's a good thing that committee is there.
You know, it was funny that Johan Santana was on the Hall of Fame voting and he got knocked off after 2 years of being on the ballot.
Yeah, that's the thing. When I was talking about fear of stuffing in the ballot box, like Johnny Damon, Hideki Matsui, great Yankees. I love them. Yankee Hall of Fame, Ring of Honor, whatever. Not Hall of Fame.
No. And the only reason they're on the ballot is because they're Yankees.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Unspoken Podcast Network. So, guys, we've been clamoring for weeks now about, we're just making fun of the NFL and all the stuff going on. And we're like, is there some competition? Can we have something else to watch? Guys, this is the XFL.
And guess who gave it to us? It was me, people! It was me all along!
You will never let me live that wrestling meme down.
Why? I love that meme. But still, context is necessary. Vince McMahon has resurrected the XFL, ready to launch in 2020. He puts up this big press conference yesterday, all these fireworks, all the smoke and mirrors. But let's dig deep. Does anybody really care about the XFL anymore?
Well, wait a minute. Let's clarify something first. It's XFL 2.0. Because the last time the XFL came, it failed so miserably that they had to basically shut it down after a week or two. So
it was a season.
Oh, fine, whatever. But I only remember it as 2 or 3 weeks because that's what it felt like. But you know what? I heard a good point yesterday that he took $100 million, which was shares that he owned of the WWE, to fund the company. What's the name of the company, Tom?
Alpha Entertainment.
Alpha Entertainment, which is now the XFL. Now, I heard it this morning on SportsCenter that $100 million is not going to fund shit. If you look at the NFL, Jerry Jones is laughing at that $100 million that Mr. McMahon put up to fund the XFL when the NFL is in a profit of $7 to $8 billion a year.
Well, first of all, the reason why he did what he's doing is because last time, if you remember, it was a venture between NBC. This time, it's going to be all Vince McMahon. And Vince said it's because so that way I can look myself in the mirror and say, this is my fault or I am the reason for the success.
I think that's worse, though.
Let's look at what he's constructed for this new venture. So
I was just going to get into that.
We've got 8 teams that are going to be. He is the sole owner of all 8 teams. It's going to be a 10-week season. 2 semifinal playoff games, and then a final, a Super Bowl, if you wish, a superb owl, let's say.
I was going to say, here comes the NFL with that copyright.
Yeah.
That's what I said last night. I said to Tom when we were having a pre-show meeting last night, I said, you're going to run into copyright issues with the NFL.
Well, they call it, I forget what they called it last time. It was like the $1 million game or the big game at the end of the season. Well, that's basically what commercials do at this point because they barely can say Super Bowl.
You know what? Instead of Super Bowl, we'll call it the Triple X Bowl.
Oh, God. Well, getting more into what the league is. So if everybody remembers the XFL last time, it was trash talking, scantily clad cheerleaders, the WWE superstars making appearances, and none of that will be in the new XFL, according to Vince McMahon.
Well, right. You made a good point that with the new XFL venture, there's going to be no crossover talent between the WWE and the XFL, which I think is a good move because last time that happened, that was a major failure.
Damn it. I wanted to see the WWE guys call a game. Oh, son of a bitch.
You really want to see them call a game?
Yes.
As I mentioned to you guys last time, at least with Jim Ross, at least he had football experience. At least Jim Ross.
And he can't be any worse than Phil Simms or Joe Buck
Well, wait a minute. You're comparing to the extreme of the extreme right there.
Again, he can't be any worse than those guys.
We do have some audio, by the way, from the XFL announcement that took place yesterday.
That will be fan-centric with all the things you like to see and less of the things you don't. And no doubt, a lot of innovations along the way. Present a shorter, faster-paced, family-friendly, and easier-to-understand game. Don't get me wrong, it's still football, but it's professional football reimagined. Since we're launching in 2020, we have 2 years, which is plenty of time to really get it right.
So for those of you who don't remember the last part of it, it's because they started the first season of the XFL after only 1 year. Teams had only like weeks of preparation and training camp together. It basically was a flop because they couldn't form a team in time. They're saying with 2 years, at least we can get some groundwork going. And he's also talking about speeding up the game. Basically, rumors are there might not be a halftime, or at least there will be less commercial breaks.
Which they can't promise because they don't know how long things are going to be. Now, Tom, you and I were talking last night. There was a question you actually wanted to ask Nick.
Oh, no. All right. So I guess we have to get, since going into the second half of this conversation, the big story of the national media is with the XFL, the rise of guys like Tim Tebow, Colin Kaepernick, and Johnny Manziel potentially playing in the XFL again. Playing football again in the XFL. So Vince McMahon actually did have some stuff he wanted to say about that. So I'm going to do it in 2 parts. So let's hear the first part.
It's as important as the quality of the player. What I mean by that is you want someone who you're associated with them. And in the XFL, even if you have a DUI, you will not play in the XFL. So that would probably eliminate some of them. Not all of them. If Tim Tebow wants to play, he could very well play.
Tim Tebow is welcome. And based on that comment of if you have even anything like a DUI, you're not playing, it looks like Johnny Manziel will not be playing in the XFL.
Oh my God!
Are you surprised?
This is going to be a complete freak show. It is. This is going to be a failure, but it won't sputter out. It's going to be a spectacular failure. It's going to be fireworks shoved up the bunghole of an elephant during a windstorm showmanship failure.
But I think, at least with this time, they're not looking to compete with the NFL. I don't think they are.
Then what are they even doing it for? What for?
At least to provide an alternative, maybe.
I don't know. I just think the XFL is a joke. And, will I give it a chance? Yes. That's the question I really wanted to ask. And then I have another one to ask. Nick, would you actually give the XFL a chance?
One game. And if I don't like what I see, which I'm probably sure I won't. It's like watching the CFL or the AFL. It's football, but it's football light. It's diet football. I just can't. You know what? This was a perfect opportunity to wrestle some control of the American viewing public's attention from the NFL, because I've said on this podcast before, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered, and the NFL has been screwing up left and right with the labyrinthian rules, the behavior problems with their players, the disciplinary problems with, and not to mention Goodell. I mean, the man is basically Satan in a crew cut. But
wow,
this doesn't seem to me like he's taking the steps necessary to take the product and improve on it. He's doing, hey, Johnny Greasestain in Mobile, Alabama we can finally enjoy football again.
Can I ask, Nick, is this because of the rule that they will have to stand for the anthem?
No, I wouldn't even have the national anthem if I was them. You know what? It shouldn't even be there anyway. The anthem wasn't even there for 20, 30 years that the NFL was playing games, and nobody complained.
I think some credit has to be at least given in that he's actually giving Colin Kaepernick a chance, saying, if you want to play, come play. It's not like, because I was watching First Take earlier, and they're like, Molly and somebody else, because Stephen A. and Max weren't in today, but it was Molly and somebody else, and they were like, oh, well, Colin Kaepernick is out because, social issues and stuff. But if you remember, I feel like there was something that said Kaepernick said he wasn't going to sit for the anthem or kneel for the anthem anymore if he was in the NFL again. And Vince has actually said, and I have the audio here if you want, if Cap, if that is true, and Cap, he doesn't have a criminal record or anything, if he wants to come play, he can come play.
I don't know. It's an interesting. I'm curious to hear what the audio is on Cap.
Could you clarify on the players that will be allowed to play in the league? So, would Colin Kaepernick be welcome in the league? Again, I think anyone who plays the game of football well and meets our criteria in terms of the quality of the human being as well as the player, why not? As long as everyone abides by the rules as laid down.
Hey, and I mean, it's got to be credit that he would give Kaepernick a chance over Johnny Manziel. I think you got to give him credit where credit's due.
No, you do. You do. And sorry, Tom, but I was going to say that you and I had this conversation that he technically didn't break any laws. So all he was doing was standing for freedom, I guess, if that's what you want to say. But he didn't break any laws technically. So he technically could be part of the XFL.
Right. If he chooses to play football again.
Well, because he apparently has other projects.
Well, I also consider Vince, you also have to give him credit for this, he's smart. Now, the big news, for those of you who didn't see my Chief Seat Sports blog, Fox and the UFC's deal might be ending this year. And Fox is looking at the WWE for potentially bringing him for 52 weeks of content a year, plus filling up their FS1, FS2. Basically, they're looking to get a piece of the WWE pie, and their TV ratings, those are some big rights. You have the league starting in 2020. The next year, the NFL is supposed to go into lockout. So basically, this is strategy. This is great strategy by Vince McMahon, I think. Is it a risk? Big time. Are they going to have a lot of people laughing? Of course. But you can't deny he doesn't have a strategy. Nick, can I ask you something? I have to ask this big question. Would you consider anybody who watches the XFL racist?
No, not at all.
Okay, because one of these big wrestling guys that I follow actually asked that. And he's normally a funny guy, so I'm not sure if he's trying to be funny or if he's actually being serious for once.
You may enjoy WWE more than you should if you watch the XFL, but it doesn't make you racist. You just like watching car crashes in slow motion.
I have one more question for Nick, and I was discussing this with Tom last night. Whether Nick would jump off the handle if I asked this question.
Please.
Yes.
So it's a yes or no question, like in PTI, when they kind of do mail time and they're trying to figure out which goes where. So if you had to say which one was going to happen first, would you say it's the NFL lockout in 2021 or the XFL is going to succeed in 2020?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I have a question for Nick now. What is the definition of succeed? Is succeed being up there with the NFL, or is it at least establishing itself as an alternative? Or
let's go by hockey ratings. It pulls hockey numbers, 3.4 million.
Right.
Okay. That I would consider a success. Could it do that? Yes, I believe it could. It could. Maybe lightning strikes and this actually works. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. In fact, I've been wrong a lot on this show. Everybody knows that.
And Eric, can I ask you, is it true what they were saying with that argument that Nick is referring to? If the NHL gets a 2 or 3 rating on NBC, people are doing backflips in celebration.
I think that's bullcrap, to be honest with you. If they do 2 or 3 ratings, they're going to be off the air and they're going to be losing a lot of money. So if they don't do at least a 4 or a 5 share, they're not going to last past the season.
What do you know? Since you work for NHL, Eric, what are usually the good ratings for national telecasts on NBCSN?
Well, I mean, I don't know that information because we don't really affiliate too closely with NBCSN in my department. So I can't really give you an answer. Can I give you an opinion? Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with what Nick just said. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the game, so it's hard for me to say it, but I think that they got to get better than 2 or 3. I mean, or they're not. No one's gonna want to watch shit like that, you know.
You're also listing on the point that if they're not bringing in a 4 or 5 share and they're only bringing a 2 or 3 share, the advertisers are not going to come either and pay to put their commercial content with the game, which they need that money to survive.
Which I think is a big risk when they're talking about lessening commercial breaks too. Like,
I can tell you one thing that I do know. One thing that I do know is that the NHL is losing a little bit of sponsorship, so that could be part of the reason. But I do know they've had to make a lot of changes in the department because a lot of people aren't watching their content, even that they put on their websites and their YouTube pages, and they've had to make a lot of cuts when it comes to, for example, they used to do voice recaps for recap videos. Someone would come in and do a voiceover, and then they laid off a lot of people because they just weren't getting the views on it, and they were getting negative feedback. So a lot of that stuff, it's a lot of little things too that,
You got to look at other things too. So like on my end, working in radio land where we do talk radio and just in general, you're making cuts from the standpoint of because people are not listening to the radio as much anymore. They're not watching TV as much anymore. They're going to their phones or they're going to iPads or anything, other devices of choice, because you no longer have to watch TV or listen to the radio anymore to get your content. And you know what? Maybe there's one radio source you can listen to, and that's Sirius XM, because you have no commercials in your content while you're listening. Because people don't want to listen to 12 or 15 minutes of commercials an hour anymore, whether it's music or sports talk. They want it now, and they don't want to hear commercials.
And I think that's one of the things that I will give some credit as well to XFL is they seem to be following a path similar to what maybe the NBA and Adam Silver are planning, in that they want to do this multi-platform, multi-commentary option. You could do it on TV, streaming services like Facebook, Amazon, on mobile devices. Basically, they want to look into the future. So honestly, guys, maybe it's just a little biased to me, but I'm willing to give this a chance. Do I think it's going to be the next best thing to the NFL? No, but I'm willing to give it some chance.
Well, that was long-winded. I'm just curious what you guys think of my question of which one's going to succeed first, the lockout or the XFL. What do you guys think?
I think it depends on the level of, what's your level of success. But where we're going, I think the NFL is going to lock out. Also because I think the NFL lockout's going to happen. It's inevitable at this rate.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What do you guys think?
It's going to happen. We're gonna have to wait and see what Mr. McMahon does.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Unspoken Podcast Network. It's time for In Other News. So a bunch of headlines to go through now to just end the show. So first of all, let's start things off with Alex Rodriguez joining Sunday Night Baseball. It's a new Sunday Night Baseball team. It's A-Rod, it's Matt Vasgersian, and who's
Jessica Mendoza.
That's right, Jessica Mendoza. So what do you guys think about this team?
I know. I saw what you did there, Morgasen. What's wrong with her?
No, it's not her I'm worried about. It's A-Rod I'm pissed off about.
Oh.
Jessica Mendoza actually is really good on the commentating team, believe it or not.
Can I ask why?
Why I don't like A-Rod? Because A-Rod gets 1 million lives, and this guy who's a fucking cheater, sorry, but that's my thought on this guy, and he keeps ending up with 9 lives and 5,000 jobs.
Hey, he didn't hurt anybody, only himself.
Okay, so there's so many guys you could have put there. You had to put A-Rod there?
I think, A-Rod, firstly, you can't deny that he doesn't know his stuff, and I think he's gotten a lot of possessed when it comes to him. He's just good on television. Like, people see A-Rod, they're like, oh wow, I either like this scumbag or I really like this, ex-Yankee who we know cheated, but like, damn, like he still comes out fighting. He's still just like, there's something about him that just brings like a presence to the game. And even though he wasn't the most honest and he sure as shit did cheat, some people just like to see him on TV. And personally, I kind of like this move. I think I'm gonna like look forward to hearing A-Rod speak because he knows the game. He really does.
I agree.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you.
And like Nick said, there's a lot of other people that could have had that job. And this may be because I am a little bit of a Yankee fan. I personally don't like A-Rod, because of what he did and how he embarrassed our organization. But I think he knows his stuff. And just like Aaron Boone was boring. But God, did that guy know baseball? I mean, he would just pick out the most ridiculous things, and like you'd be like, "Wow, I did not know that." And I feel like A-Rod kind of does the same thing.
And I mean, we talk about all the time about second chances, and honestly, this is a second chance. That this is a step away from the game. It's like after the 2013-2014 BS, I think you saw a turn in A-Rod. I know Nick Morgasen, you're shaking your head. I think this though is his last chance. Like if he screws up now, yeah, I think that's it forever. But well, I think
let me clarify something. So, like Eric said, his knowledge of the game, agree 100%. He knows his stuff. He's a knowledgeable guy. He's definitely worthy as an analyst. I don't understand why Fox is letting ESPN take him and why ESPN is allowing Fox Sports. That's a whole nother issue that we could get into.
That's the thing I don't get.
And also working for ABC. There's a whole other issue going on there. I don't know how he is like the only guy in media that's allowed to keep all three jobs. But
well, I mean, in the XFL, like in the case, like if Fox and the WWE do a thing, and it's like the XFL, games are going to be on Fox. Like, how does that work? Because the NFC contract, I don't know what Fox is doing business wise between this XFL, everything.
No, but you know what? Going back to Eric's point, I will say he's an expert analyst. I'll go as far as to say he's an expert analyst. I can't stand guys who have cheated multiple times. And as far as people are batting a blind eye, I can count at least 3 or 4 times he's probably cheated. And Major League Baseball and the Yankees have kind of bat a blind eye because they're only looking at the marketing dollars. And if you remember from A-Rod's last contract, that monstrosity of 10 years, $300 million.
That's a good way to put it.
He had an incentive, most people don't remember this, for I think in the top 5 when he got or top 10 or top 5 in the home run list, he made $5 million for each player that he jumped in the home run list. And the Yankees and the Major League Baseball batted a blind eye because they wanted him to break the record.
But that's got nothing to do with his skills as an analyst, which is the only thing that ESPN is looking at. They don't care about what he did when he was playing. That's ancient history, but as far as they're concerned.
But it seems like no one cares about who they put on, morality of the guys they put on TV anymore. They're going to take the guy who had a DUI, abused a woman, and they'll put him on TV because he's apparently one of the smarter analysts in baseball. Now, I'm not saying A-Rod abused anybody or whatever. It's bad morals for television and radio.
Oh, so now you're Mr. Moral?
Yeah.
What?
It's all about the ratings. It really is. And the fact that they're going to get a lot of pissed off people because they can't stand A-Rod, but all those pissed off people are going to turn that TV on and watch it. So that's what it'll come down.
Of course I'm going to watch it.
Eyeballs are going to be on TV and asses will be in seats. That's all they care about.
Well, that's all.
There'll be people in the next generation who won't even know A-Rod as a player. I'm sorry, but I got to say that. He will be more a commentator.
I guess.
Guys, let's move on now to a little bit of hockey talk. So we haven't had much hockey talk in the last few weeks. And I think Derek's here. It's a little appropriate. Let's talk about the rise of the Vegas Golden Knights. How is it by the All-Star break, this expansion team in its first year is right near the top?
Well, I've been telling everybody that's been asking me this question, and my answer is you can't even just say it's goaltending because Marc-Andre Fleury was out for 20-something games. But it's a lot of average players who never got the chance on a good team. For example, Nate Schmidt from the Washington Capitals, Oscar Lindbergh from the Rangers, a bunch of Colin Miller from the Bruins. A lot of these guys who were like the chance on the other team, they could be stars. And that's what happened. I'm going to use Nate Schmidt as an example because he's a Capital and I follow them closely. Just started breaking into the lineup. And he was supposed to be, he was a starting third-pairing defenseman for the majority of the last season. And they knew he was going to be a top 4 defenseman. Vegas grabbed them. So they've taken a lot of these guys who have this potential but just couldn't break the roster because the other teams just had so many good players. So now they take all these players who were just average players and were on the brink of rising to a star. They all get phenomenal minutes because, people like William Karlsson from Columbus played like 14 minutes a game last year. Now he's playing like 23. So all these guys are showing what they can do. And you put all these guys together. They're fast, they're young, they're hungry, and they have veteran leadership. David Perron, James Neal, Marc-Andre Fleury know how to run a locker room. Derek Engelland. So it's pretty incredible to see. But that's how I take it. You got a lot of these young chance and you play them and you see what their potential is and you build around that. And you got a coach like Gerard Gallant who played who coached a young Florida Panthers team, so he knows how to coach young players, and you adapt to how these players play, and they got a good thing going right now. And I think George McPhee, the general manager, has to think, do I sell some of these guys at the trade deadline, or do we have something here? Do I have to re-sign some of these guys like James Neal, who's a free agent next year, to get $7-8 million? What do I do?
Well, I mean, with the history of expansion teams in the NHL, we've never seen anything like this. I mean, Nashville did not come off that fast. The Coyotes definitely didn't. They still don't, and God knows if they ever will. Yeah. Anthony Duclair or not.
Yeah, Arizona had one good year, but
but still, we've never seen an expansion team do this. That's the amazing thing, especially in the NHL, where the new franchises, don't hit the ground running. They tend not to.
I mean, not just that, but I mean, not you say in the history of the NHL, Nick, in the history of professional sports. I mean, this is something really unprecedented. I mean, consider they said that they wanted a Stanley Cup within 5 years. I remember thinking, while that is ridiculous, I do see the talent, the youth on that team. When the expansion draft happened, I thought there can actually be something here. Even if they don't win the Stanley Cup within 5 years, I think they have the ability within 5 years to, at least be somewhere. They can be something. They're not going to be like the Arizona Coyotes where they're stuck in the basement for years.
Well, Eric, I must ask, seeing as how what we've seen from this team this year, is this a fluke, or can we shorten that 5-year window to, whenever? Or
you guys know the playoffs is a whole different animal. So you can be the best team in the league and lose. We've seen that multiple times. And it's been a long time since a President's Trophy team has won the Stanley Cup. I think if we thought it was a fluke, it would have been over by now. I mean, we all thought by the bye week, I wouldn't even say the bye week, let's say the first quarter of the season when there were 25 games and something like that, we were like, okay, this is kind of illegit, but there's still plenty of time for this team to slump. And the bye weeks came, and we're like, all right, they're still around. They're struggling. They're starting to lose a little bit on the road. Playing at T-Mobile Arena in Vegas, they first time in over 58 days where they lost in regulation. So that's 14 games the last time they lost in regulation at T-Mobile Arena. That was to the Islanders last night. So I think now at the All-Star break, and they're still here, and they're the second best team in the league, I don't think it's a fluke. But I think it makes it harder for a general manager to figure out where this future of this team needs to go. And that's why he has to be super careful, because he can either have a cup, next year or year after, but this is a franchise. You have to think down the road as well. So I don't know. It's really interesting. I don't really have much to say on that, because I don't think we ever thought they were going to be here. So, I mean, if they can go win a Stanley Cup now, why not? Why plan for 5 in the future, to win 5 years from now?
When you can do it now and make history. That's never happened where a team in its first year in the league wins a championship. That'd be something to see.
I have a question for Eric, because maybe he would know the answer to this. Knowing that we now have a team in Vegas, and we have a couple of other teams coming to Vegas, do you really think that this, for the Golden Knights, do you really think that this is going to be a good outlet being in Vegas? It's going to help them to gain fans and traction being in the big market in Nevada?
I really believe so. I mean, I don't think this is just something that people are just going because it's something new and fresh. I think there's been a lot of hockey fans out there that are in that area, lost between, which direction they want to go to root for a team. And you're seeing they've sold out this arena for almost every single home game so far. And I think that a city like that, there's a lot of big fans, and whether it's going to be the football team that comes soon or this hockey team, I think it's going to continue to grow. And that's what they needed to do as a franchise, was they needed to get these fans on the same page as their team, which I think they really have. I think they've had a lot of great, fan get-togethers and giveaways, and player meeting the fans, and all these different, I guess you could say, advertisements to get these fans to the arena. And it's incredible. It's a brand new arena. Who doesn't want to see a game in Vegas? I mean, I'm already looking to try to go to a game next year once they release the schedule. I mean, it's just cool. It's just really cool. It's just about keeping them on board. It really is. And you can be good now for 2 years and then piddle out, and then look what happens. I mean, look at a team like Vancouver. They're thinking about moving a team like that. Meanwhile, 4 or 5 years ago, they were in the Stanley Cup Finals, or 6 years ago, whatever it was. So who knows? I think it's a good thing for the game. I really don't want to see another team like somewhere in Seattle, but that's just how the game's going to go. They just want to look more.
You can kind of say it's like the NBA when they moved the Supersonics to OKC, yeah. and now they want to put a team back in Seattle because they feel like they're missing a market. Would you say it's kind of the same thing?
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. They just came out that they want to build an arena there, and who thought Vegas was going to be a hockey city? Who thought Arizona was going to be a hockey city? So I could say all the stuff about Seattle's not a hockey city. There could be fans there, but it's just I don't know. Like I feel like it comes with just other things besides the fans. Like why not put a team back in Quebec? The Nordiques. That city as a whole doesn't bring in a lot of money. It actually almost cost the city more to renovate the arena, and that's why they brought the Winnipeg Jets back, because that's a hockey city and it brings in money more than just pleasing the fans.
Now, Eric, let's go to the other side of the spectrum, a team that is basically struggling and has fallen into the toilet after last season, the Ottawa Senators. What the hell is going on, man? I mean, you're talking about they made a trade. What's his name? They made a trade, I think, with the Predators, and the guy that they sent over to the Predators is actually doing well. Meanwhile, the guy they got, his name slips my mind at the moment. He is struggling and not living up to expectations. And I mean, this is the second time.
Weber, is it?
No, but this is the second time. Speaking of which, actually, that the Predators are getting off of a trade that shouldn't have happened. I mean, the first time was PK Subban with the Montreal Canadiens, and now. I don't know what is going on with Ottawa. This is sad to see.
Well, it's just funny because it's funny how Nashville benefited from this, and they weren't even like the center of the trade. It was between Colorado and, however, Nashville got the better deal. I think Colorado's going to be good. They got a lot of young talent and they got a lot of young future, and they've been pretty good so far. But going back to the Senators, I think a lot of teams just figured them out. I mean, they saw what they were doing consistently. They play this 1-3-1 sort of setup, and they kind of crowd the blue line so that their teams can't get in. So what do? You just dump and chase, and you take the body to them. And a lot of teams figure them out. And Craig Anderson's not having a great year, and a lot of chemistry is just not there. And they have such great shooters. They have such great goal scorers. Matt Hoffman, now Matt Duchene.
That's who I was thinking of.
Mark Stone is fantastic. Jean-Gabriel Pajot, Ryan Dzingel. They have great talent. It's just their defense is not strong. And besides Erik Karlsson, you have an aging Dion Phaneuf, and they lost Mark Mathot. So they have a lot of weaknesses. You can't just win purely on goal scoring. Craig Anderson is getting old, and they figured out how to break them. And a team that made the Eastern Conference Final last year and who was one win away from the Stanley Cup is now the second worst team in the league, and Buffalo might actually surpass them. Ottawa may be the last place team, and I mean, who knows? Maybe this is a blessing in disguise because Erik Karlsson will leave. He's not taking a pay cut to remain in Ottawa. Playing in Ottawa was a disaster. It's like the arena's like an hour away from the city of Ottawa. So maybe this is a blessing in disguise. When Erik Karlsson leaves, they'll get a number 1 draft pick.
Aging goalie, the team with the window getting shut. Oh my God, it sounds like the Rangers.
Oh my God, it does. And you know what? The same way the Rangers are going to get blown up after this season, especially since Alain Vigneault is going to be tossed out on his ass this offseason or next offseason, the Senators are going to be blown up too. I mean, there's no way they can face together.
I think, Erik Karlsson, they probably want to do everything they can to get him back. But in hindsight, the guy's like probably close to 30 years older now, that he's going to want the max 8-year deal for however many million. He's one of the best defensemen in the league. Right now, I think they should trade him, get a shit ton of assets, and then get that number 1 draft pick, and then have another couple first-rounders in there. Maybe get a high-rated prospect in a trade that a team really needs him. And build for the future, because they have a lot of young talent. Erik Karlsson's probably – it's weird because he's still kind of young, but he's also a veteran on that team. I think they should start making that change, because this is – I don't want to say this is a fluke season, because this has just been really bad. With that much talent, this is something wrong. And they're hanging on to Guy Boucher, their head coach, for a reason, because he's a good coach. It doesn't have to – it's not the coach's fault. It may be his style of play that they have to change a little bit, but I think it starts in the locker room.
Definitely. Speaking of coach – hey, big New York Giants news. Pat Shurmur now officially the head coach of the New York Giants, moving from the Minnesota offensive coordinator position into the head coach position. First head coaching position ever.
Shurmur. It is.
He coached the Browns.
Oh, that's right. He did coach the Browns.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, I'm sure that's kind of a distant memory at this point.
I was going to say like
a 9-20.
Well, that's the thing. It's like a 9-23 record, but at this point, anybody who coaches the Browns has a 9-23 record. It's just at this point the Browns suck, and there's nothing that we can do to change it at this point.
They stamp you with 9-23 on your forehead when you take the job.
It's kind of just bad luck. Like, if you go there, you're just cursed, and you're just going to end up being a bad situation in the making. Who's the coach now?
Isn't McAdoo heading there now to be the offensive coordinator?
That's what I heard.
God, he is.
Yes, he is. But who's the guy that's won in like 30 something right now? You told me, Tom.
Jackson.
Oh yeah, that's right, Jackson. And
I don't understand how the hell he's still employed.
Well, I love how the owner came out. This was the beginning of the season. Well, we're happy with him, so we're just going to keep him.
And that's after the new general manager.
We don't have anybody else.
That's after the new general manager, by the way, criticized the old administration, saying it failed the team. But keep the head coach in that administration. Makes perfect sense.
But you know what? What we've seen from the Eagles, I mean, how we've seen the NFC East basically, well, personified by the Eagles get better. The Giants, experiencing a significant turnaround is farther away than I thought it was. And as bad as it could be, as bad as it was last season, they'll get better, but I don't think they'll get, really, good yet. It's farther away than we thought it was.
Just to comment on that, I mean, you always see these Instagram posts and the Twitter posts about the quotes that what Pat Shurmur's saying when he's inducted. I mean, every coach is going to say, we want to build a winning team. We want to do this. We want to do that. So I don't know much about him to really make how the season's going to go. Again, we were all talking back this past summer that the Giants could be a Super Bowl contender, and then a lot of injuries and a lot of crap happened. So
how far away that seems.
Obviously, I'm hoping for the best. I hope what he's saying is true. I mean, I'm sure every coach wants to say that and wants to, but it's about putting it to work and seeing how it reflects with the players. It's about building that trust in the locker room as well, which I feel like the Giants and McAdoo certainly did not have. So yeah,
I mean, it's just. I really, really hope that the Giants can at least turn something around. And hopefully it doesn't last, like if there is a rebuild of sorts, quote rebuild, hopefully it doesn't last longer than it needs to, because the fact that we went from a potential Super Bowl contender to this basin, I don't want to feel this feeling that I felt this season.
Yeah, I agree. But I really want to thank you guys for the opportunity to come on. It's always a lot of fun. I love hearing other people's opinions on other things as well. So to Nick, and Tom, soon, and good luck with the rest of the podcast. I see some cool topics coming up, so I hope everyone enjoys and appreciate it as always.
Yep.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. All right, take care.
All right. So you're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Under Podcast Network. Hey, Nick, it's basketball time, so let's get right into it. I know you have a lot to say about this Cleveland Cavaliers team.
And actually, an incident just broke, from Chris Mannix.
Oh, no.
Marcus Smart, who plays for the Boston Celtics, will miss 2 weeks after suffering lacerations on his right hand in a non-basketball incident on Wednesday in L.A.
How worse can it get for this team? This is just... Remember that McAdoo video where I was like playing with the music in the background, and as the events and the comments from the sports media people got angrier, the music got louder? This is what I feel. It's like every single thing that now happens with the Cavs, I hear that music and it's just getting up and up and up. You know what?
Instead of the circus music for the Knicks, you're going to need the circus music for the Celtics and the Cavs now, which you didn't think you were going to need. But... Back to top.
We don't give the circus music out to anybody who's struggling. We give it the circus music out to somebody who is truly circus level incompetent. We're talking about Send in the Clowns level incompetent. Celtics have gotten there because they still have a shot. What?
To take a word from that YouTuber I like, Schlazer, you're referring to. How about a lol cow?
Exactly.
But in the long run. That's one news that happened. The drama in Cleveland is the next thing we were going to talk about. And it seems like LeBron James and the Cavs and now Kevin Love getting into a fight in the locker room. And it seems like this team is not gelling as well as people thought they were. And now there's rumors that Isaiah Thomas might be traded away after they made that trade. Guys, it's Circusville in Cleveland, everybody.
I didn't hear about the Isaiah Thomas thing. Oh my God, this is disaster land.
You're right. Right. It does deserve it.
The Unspoken Podcast now takes a trip to the circus that is the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh my God!
I never thought I would say that in a million years, but here we are.
Now
it's a circus that's next to a dumpster fire. I don't get it.
And here's the other problem: a lot of people don't realize this. Ty Lue might lose his job.
Oh, I've already determined he's going to lose his job anyways.
they're in the top of the East, and he's going to lose his job for reasons unknown, or I guess if you want to say reasons unspoken at this point. But moving on from the drama in Cleveland, because there's really no other way to describe it. The first NBA All-Star Team draft, not televised.
Stupid.
Now, the only thing we know from the draft is that LeBron James took Kevin Durant first, and that's all we know. But apparently...
It's a fucking all-star exhibition game.
Do we really need to televise a draft, though?
It would have It would have made for more content. It would have put more context behind it.
Also, are we really going to... it's like... even if it wasn't televised, at least give a better reason than players' feelings will get hurt. You're professional freaking athletes.
Well, what's coming out, I don't know if you guys saw it, but Russell Westbrook was a reserve on LeBron James's team. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I can't tell whether he's throwing shade or he's trying to tell us something.
The problem was because it wasn't televised, people don't know who was picked. So people are making fun of Russell Westbrook because they thought he was picked last.
Well, I mean, remember, this is coming from the man who patted himself on the back via social media on 30,000 points before he even got to 30,000 points.
Well, no, actually, he was...
Congratulate the Unspoken Podcast on reaching episode number 54.
Well, I was going to say, we should go back to the first episode and congratulate ourselves for getting to the 100th episode.
Oh my...
Because we all knew we were going to get to 100 episodes after the first episode. I don't know. Just it's an interesting situation. With I kind of like what they did now. It's no longer East versus West. It's now the teams are mixed up between East and West players. So
I do like it, but Jesus Christ, all the drama in the NBA, especially with that Cleveland team. Good God.
And you know what? This is leading to my point. If you remember from when I brought it up, when the NBA is going to expand, and this I think is the first step of getting rid of East versus West and playing all the teams in the same, having one modern division, kind of.
Basically. Moving on from that. Now, apparently the NBA is trying to legalize gambling or something like that. I just heard this story yesterday that they want sports betting for the NBA now.
Yes, they are. They're trying to legalize betting on NBA games, and I'm not sure how they're going to do it because right now they're having a problem doing it for all the other sports unless you're in Vegas, where I got to see the betting lines and books firsthand. But there's a lawsuit in court in New Jersey right now because there are some legal ramifications that you can get around for betting in New Jersey. You can't legally bet on games still. That's still not allowed. So they're trying to figure out, the NBA said, oh, you want us involved? Well, we want a bigger cut of the action if we're going to allow NBA games to be gambled on. So, you know what? That's like saying, all right, well, if you pay us, then we'll be involved. If you're not going to pay us, then you can go kick rocks and get lost.
Can I bet $50,000 on the fact that Kristaps Porzingis may blow out his knee? Holy crap, I'm rich.
Well, are you referring to that he didn't play against the Warriors, but he ended up playing the next game?
Yeah.
Well, because we know the NBA players are a bunch of babies and they have to be treated like babies and they can't play 81 games anymore. That's pretty much the Knicks treating their star like a baby, but that's like in any sport. So that's the best I can tell you there.
Guys, I'm sad Eric left. We have breaking news.
What?
So, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Rangers could deal Nash, Zuccarello, McDonough ahead of trade deadline. What the fuck are you doing?
Blow it up like a crazy prospect that's sitting on a fuck ton of dynamite.
Well, actually, since you want to go that route, should we talk about also what's going on in Major League Baseball with the possible violations of payroll slashing?
Oh, God, that's right. The Pirates and Marlins are getting investigated by MLB for basically the MLB version of tanking.
Well, we saw the reports from the Miami Herald that teams went to the commissioner's office and said, hey, the Marlins are slashing their payroll, but they're not making their team any better.
Well, context isn't necessary. So they just traded Christian Yelich to the Brewers for a haul of prospects. Who knows if they're any good, though?
I'm going to go on the no for that, but...
I'm going to go on the maybe. Only because it's their top prospect. It's not like you're getting the number 50 prospect.
Let's recap what the Marlins have done this offseason. They've basically blown it up. They've traded Giancarlo Stanton, Marcell Ozuna, D. Gordon, Christian Yelich. Who else am I missing?
Well, JT Realmuto now is
the lone guy that's left.
Well, now he's taking basically Yelch's spot, and now he's complaining, and now he wants to be traded.
And I think he'll end up being traded. But here's my prediction: if he gets traded, the hammer is going to go down on the Marlins, though.
But at this point, I mean, if he doesn't get traded, then this is going to become a major storyline throughout. It's going to be the Marlins versus Realmuto.
Yeah, but I don't think that matters at this point. I think they almost have to trade him because there's no value for him.
If you're gonna tank, you might as well just go all the way.
Yeah, and it's going to be I can't believe they sentenced Stalin Castro to live out the rest of his career in this baseball prison. I mean, what's the punishment? What's the punitive measures that the MLB can take against the Marlins? Take away their players? They don't have anybody.
I mean, they can go into their farm system, but they have a crappy farm system. And what are they going to do? Are they going to?
Again, there's nobody there. It's the equivalent of trying to find a Buddhist at a gun show. Nobody's going to find him there. Nobody there.
I don't know, but the way to look at it is you can't take money away from them because they're losing money in their operations because they overpaid, and you can't take revenue away from them because they're not making any. Their farm system stinks. They have no major league players. They can't suspend anybody. I mean, it's pretty much dead man's curve, and you can't get around it.
I know. I mean, what's left to do? Is it going to be to kick out Derek Jeter?
You can't. He's the dream in the.
I say because not just where you're going with, but it's also not a lot of. I don't know if we can say a lot or none of this, but a portion of this isn't even his fault. That was the bidding of the last owner, Jeffrey Loria, basically.
Oh, God, one of the worst owners in all of sports, whether it was the Eagles or the Marlins.
He ruined 2 franchises. Congratulations.
He screwed over the Expos, too.
I mean, he's worse than Jerry Jones, but that's a whole other discussion.
Let's say things we can't take back.
And speaking of which, that's going to do it for us at the Unspoken Podcast for today. Go like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope at the UDUP. Go follow the Unspoken Podcast Network itself at the UD Network. Thank you again to Eric Lizzul for coming on and discussing all the latest with us. It was fun having him on, and guys, that's going to do it. So for Nick Fodera, Nick Morgasen, Eric Lizzul, I'm Tom Albano. We'll see you next time. You've been listening to the Unspoken Podcast, a cheap seat sports production party on the Turn Podcast Network. Good night, everybody.
Everybody.
Good night.